I've brought this with me. To lots of people, you'll recognize it as a gramophone record. But when I was a little boy, I lived with my grandparents, and underneath their stairs was a gramophone player. And I was fascinated with it. I used to love going and trying to get it to work, but I've never been that technical, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But I loved it, and I loved playing with it. And I found a stack of gramophone records, and I was kind of amazed by them. To me, I'd never seen anything quite like it, and I wanted to take it with me to my other grandparents' house. Now, when I was little, I was kind of very clumsy. I was born with a turn in my eye. I was like a cross, a bit between Forrest Gump and the Milky Bar Kid. That was kind of a good way of, that kind of summed me up. I looked like the Milky Bar Kid. I tripped over my own feet. I was terrible. Well, I selected a gramophone record to take with me to my other grandparents' house. I was very excited. I started running towards the car. It flew out of my hand mysteriously. And do you know what happened? Of course, these things are so fragile. It ended up on the pavement and smashed into what seemed like a million tiny, shiny pieces. And I knew very early on in my life that I wanted something to do with music. Now, I was never that kid that anybody considered to be cool. I had big kind of Clark Kent glasses, and I'm in the original Chris Reeve type glasses. I wanted to look like him, and I picked the biggest ones you could possibly find. I had a mop of curly ginger hair, and I was not considered cool by anybody. And at that time, one of the great things now about education is the arts is not made up of predominantly females only. At the time, if you were interested in arts, you were looked down upon a bit, certainly in the school that I went to. And I remember choir auditions. And I thought, I cannot be in this choir. Every single person had to audition. And I remember it was Any Dream Will Do from Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat. And as they walked past me, I wore my coat with golden. And they walked straight past me. And they did not pick me for that choir. And I was very glad of it at the time. But what I realized is, even from that age in primary school, I was self-regulating the version of myself that I wanted the world to see. That version of myself that I thought would be the most acceptable I wanted to put forward. I then went to comprehensive school, and I can remember very, very clearly being in a music lesson. I walked in, and all around the room were keyboards set up with headphones straddled over the kind of music stands. And there were pieces of paper on every one of those keyboards. And the idea was you go and basically follow a number pattern. And I thought to myself, okay, I did that for a few moments. Then I started making up my own music. Now, that wasn't what the lesson required. Original thought was not part of the kind of learning outcomes for that particular lesson. Now, this teacher, she was very scary. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but she was very scary at the time. Walked over, took my headphones off, switched the keyboard off, and told me in no uncertain terms, music is not for you. That was what she says. I thought teachers were all-knowing and all-powerful at the time. I am a teacher, and I'm definitely not all-knowing or all-powerful, but at the time I really thought they did. And I stopped piano lessons, and I put music to the side and said, no more. That's it. Done. Finished. And I thought, again, how many times in your life has somebody said something to you that could be taken as a negative or a criticism? And it doesn't matter how many brilliant things someone says to you, how many positive comments that someone says to you, that one negative thing eats away at your brain. And it makes you doubt the very person you are on every single level. This is what happened in this moment. So I stepped away from something that I loved. How many people in this room maybe had a dream to be, I don't know, a football player, a ballerina, an artist, a speaker, whatever it may be? And at some point, someone told you, you either couldn't or you shouldn't do it. Maybe it's because of where you were brought up. Maybe it was because your parents, grandparents didn't understand what you were trying to do. Maybe a friend, possibly jealousy. But for whatever reason, this happens. Now, years later, I remember walking around the estate where I lived, and I had this ridiculous idea to take a piano underground at Big Pit in Blaenavon. I thought Bryn Terfel had just taken a piano to the top of Snowdon. And I thought, you know what? What if I took a piano underground to pay tribute to all of the miners who'd lost their lives as a result of actually coal mining disasters, but also afterwards, through the illnesses that people picked up because of working in mines. And to pay tribute to the legacy of miners, when you think about the libraries, the theatres, the hospitals, this incredible legacy. And I remember speaking to the head of the museum in Wales, and they told me, okay, go and speak to the pit manager. He said to me, it's not the craziest idea we've ever been pitched, which makes me think, what on earth has been pitched to Big Pit in the past? But you know what? I was so close to not attending the meeting, so close. I woke up full of self-doubt. What a terrible idea this is. Awful, dreadful idea. It was snowing, didn't have a car at the time. The only way to get there was to catch 3 buses. Now the snow, I'm gonna big this up a little bit, okay? It was a very snowy day in Wales. To me, it seemed like a lot of snow. And I caught these 3 buses, but I really almost bottled out so many times. And it was like some big, real survival test, walking up the mountain towards Big Pit. I was falling in my trainers. I was utterly unprepared for this quest. But I got there out of breath, red, full of snow, and told them this idea. And they went with it. And that was incredible. What an amazing experience. One of the most profound of my life, to take that piano underground at Big Pit in Blaenavon. And it went out on national television and different programs. But really, it was about paying tribute and respect. But I would never have got there if I had believed that voice that was in my own head. And the voices of the people in the past who told me music was not for me. That things that I've done in my life would not have happened if I listened to those voices. Now, back to recording. What I love about recording is the fact that you get something you can listen to. Seems really basic. But isn't it amazing that a record like that, there are so many different takes within that. For example, when the Beatles recorded the wonderful Strawberry Fields Forever, 26 times the Beatles recorded that song. 26 times. In the end, George Martin, the producer, took 2 separate takes, put them together to create the final version of that song. I can tell you, hand on heart, that I have recorded more than 26 takes of songs in the past, both from my own perspective, but also running sessions where people are literally despairing. You're trying to sing a note and it's just not happening. The voice is cracking, things are going on. You decide to tune notes. What you're actually looking for is perfection. You are seeking perfection. And I think that's one of the things that recording music has taught me, is that you can spend hours and hours and hours and it's still not good enough. You are looking for anything to improve. Can I make this better? Can I tune this note? And you become really obsessed with it. In live performance, you get this unique quality, this human quality. You don't get a second chance. Yes, you practice and you've done all of these things, but you don't get another chance. it's live, it's in the moment. But I think, in general, people would prefer to hear live music. It's about connection. It's about being together. It's about the sound in the space. It's about seeing that person. Recordings are incredible, but the quest for perfection, sometimes in our lives, takes over the initial aim, which was to record a beautiful song. Now, in the movie industry, I call this the outtake principle. There is this wonderful thing about movies where, okay, there's a script supervisor, there's a script writer, there's a lighting designer, there's a director, producer, an executive producer. You've seen those credit lists, and they go on and on. Sometimes there's 2 songs, and they're still going. They are controlled environments. Do you know the bloopers at the end of TV series or sometimes films, where the actors come to life? They drop a line and they start laughing and interacting with each other. And they're actually these beautiful moments where you see the people for who they are. No longer, when you think about it, the quest of a movie is to be someone else. That is the sole purpose of that actor, to inhabit somebody else. And there are people who do it incredibly, but they're not being themselves. It can never be called authentic. They're just delivering this incredible performance. But I think in life, a lot of what we do is to deliver an incredible performance. But sometimes, who decides what talent is? Who decides what is acceptable or what is not acceptable? I'll tell you this great story. George Gershwin and Irving Berlin. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those later on. But those 2 incredible composers. George Gershwin was brand new. He was up and coming. Irving Berlin was already this established name. Irving Berlin used to have someone called a musical secretary. He would play his songs. Someone would sit there and write down the notes. Irving Berlin did not really read music that well, and he felt that that entire process slowed him down. The man wrote over 1,000 songs. He lived to be over 100 years old. George Gershwin died at 38 years old. The comparison is incredible. But Gershwin turned up for a job with Irving Berlin. Berlin sits down, plays the song. Gershwin plays it back, completely different. He'd improvised and done his own thing. And Berlin said to him, look, I'll double your salary, but I'm telling you now, kid, if you come work for me, I promise you, you will become a second-rate Irving Berlin, or go out and become a first-rate George Gershwin. Less than a year later, George Gershwin had a hit song. His life was defined by one of the greatest composers of all time not giving him the job, essentially. Yes, he turned it down, but Berlin gave him this incredible gift. Children are amazing at doing many, many things. And I think the greatest lesson that I've learned from teaching is a simple one. Children do not regulate themselves, really. They do what they want to do. And school is like the anti of everything they want to do. Because when you think of it, we're still running a Victorian educational system. People sit in rows. You've got corridors with rooms off to the side. Very much like a prison. Very much like mental institutions. And that was by design, may I add. That was how they designed schools. That was the purpose. Bells, punishments, rewards, CCTV now, gates. It was by design. And when you think about school, what you really want is children to be super excited and to be passionate about things. But the environment squashes people. And when you think of phones, there's phones around us tonight. Every year, one comes out, a brand new phone, an upgrade. School still looks like it did 100-odd years ago. No great upgrades. It's very, very similar. My son is obsessed with ghost trains. Now, on the kind of side of that, you kind of think, right, okay, what is it about the ghost trains he likes? Is it the excitement? It's not just that. He loves the way they operate, the design. He likes the theory of it. He can tell you the first ever ghost train was in Blackpool. That was the first one named a ghost train, that the ride was a pretzel ride, had come from America, and he'll even tell you that it's haunted, apparently, by a real ghost called Cloggy. Now, what William does really, really well is learn different concepts. Science, physics, engineering, math, communication, it all fits into this one concept that he loves about ghost trains. I think it would be incredible. Imagine if school was, even if it was 2 hours a week, where you could define your own life project, something you were fascinated with, something that you could continue to progress with. And the teacher was there to help you get there. This isn't something you could put down next week. This is something you collaborate with others on, your peers, something you're interested in, and we find how the subjects match those things. We have parents' evenings, but teachers rarely sit down with children and say, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? What would you like to learn? Rarely happens. There's so much we can do for children at a young age to tell them that individuality is good, that they do not need to be the same. Because if everyone was the same, nothing good would ever happen, because innovation would stop. We want children to have a basic education, absolutely. But we also want them to be thinkers, innovators, to want to learn about things they are interested in, so that one day they can make a great difference to this world. Alan Turing, one of my absolute heroes. Alan Turing shortened the war by a couple of years. He saved millions of lives, along with the great people at Bletchley Park who he worked with, by breaking the Enigma code. Turing was incredible at science and math. He was not a good student elsewhere. In other subjects, he did not really excel. People thought he was odd, they thought he was strange. Even at Bletchley Park, people thought he was very eccentric. Alan Turing did something that saved millions of lives because he followed his own way, his own path. Turing is now on the £50 note. He is celebrated on that £50 note, and he's one of the fathers of computing. And Alan Turing never got to understand how his thinking changed the world. I look at someone like Turing, and if they misunderstood him, who do we misunderstand? Who do we not see the potential in? Who do we not look for the potential in? And what if people actually listen to the negative comments and the concerns that people have and actually never progress or never follow their dreams? There's a line from The Imitation Game that says, sometimes it's the people that no one imagines anything of that can do the things that no one can imagine. I think that is our quest in life, to help people go towards their natural inclinations, to support people wherever we can, and it is never too late. You know, we may not become a professional football player, but we can still share that interest and be part of communities, and we can still empower other people. There is so much within every single person that can be shared, and there are ideas in all of us that we are afraid to tell another person about because we do not know how that will be interpreted or taken. I think the quest of life is simple. It's not to consider who we should be, but who we were before the world told us who to be. Thank you very much.